Good evening, good evening. Welcome to the Dominance Academy. I'm your host, Mr. Justin. Hope you're all having a good weekend. That fucking heat wave finally broke. Thank goodness. That was shit. It was like 103 degrees in New York City. Pardon the sunglasses. I usually don't wear these, but I've been doing a lot of writing today, and my eyes are tired. So I didn't have like a specific topic to talk about. So what I thought I would do is read through some of my SUBSTACK articles. And I believe in the description to the videos here, there's a link to my SUBSTACK. So if you want to do some reading on the deeper topics at hand within dominance and submission, please give that a read. And I go through, most of it is about submission, because I find that women are more drawn to reading about this sort of stuff. So I write more for them. And but I do have some stuff in here for the dominants to help their understanding. So I guess I'll start off with one of those. I'll start off with a piece for the dominants, for the men, right? Because see, the thing about dominance is nothing special. It really isn't. All it is a creative expression of your masculine core. That's all it is. And it can get either like more detailed, more expressive, or you can keep it fairly simple. Because not every one of my clients is into BDSM or anything like that. Some of my clients are just into a simple power dynamic with defined roles, and that's it. And then other guys, they get super, super detailed into the things they want to do and how they want to express themselves, how they want to express their side of the polarity. And that's quite all right. There's no real right or wrong way to do it as long as it's not abusive. So the first piece here is called Descend. And I wrote this with the idea that I wanted men to understand something a little bit more impactful about sitting on your throne as a man and what it actually means. Because I think guys have the wrong idea. I think they believe that the throne of a man is high up on a mountaintop, and it's not. It's actually deep below the earth. So let's get into that. It's called Descend. He who would master the heights must first kneel at the depths. Maxims of the Sovereign Path, Chapter 2, verses 4. Men dream of rising. And so let me just turn down this music. All right. So, men dream of rising, of leading, of commanding. They envision thrones. They never the spiral staircase down to reach them. But all true power begins with descent. To descend is to violate the modern commands to always ascend. It is to question the doctrine of progress as status or growth as ladder. It is to recognize that the path to sovereignty does not climb, it sinks deep, inward, below the masks, below the praise, into the quiet chambers where no one claps. You do not build a dominant man upward. You dig him out of the rubble beneath the ego. Descent is not regression. It is excavation. It is the process of shedding what was never sovereign to begin with, the wounded boy seeking appeasement, the covert contracts, the hunger for approval dressed as kindness, the mommy tethers. These are the upper roots of the nice man. He cannot lead, not because he lacks ambition, but because he fears depth. He has never entered the cavern where his shadow lives. To descend is to confront that shadow, not to conquer it, but to claim it, not to exile what is dark, but to give it language and form. The dominant who has not descended is brittle. He mimics authority, but fractures or lashes out under pressure. His presence is shallow. His words land without weight. His rituals feel rehearsed. But the man who has gone down, who has knelt before his own chaos and endured it, he becomes gravity. He does not perform stillness, he is still. He does not chase control, he embodies it. And when he speaks, the air listens. Descent breaks you. You will face the distorted reflection of yourself that was kept hidden even from your fantasies, your resentment, your rage, your pathetic need to be loved. You will have no audience there, only mirrors, and most of them cracked. But if you do not run, if you stand still in the filth of your unassailed truth, a new order begins to form. One not built on chaos of belief, but on knowing. When the dust settles, he emerges. This is what women feel. Not the words, not the look, but the depth you carry from exploring the obscured. A man who has not descended cannot hold a woman. He will flinch at her chaos, misread her tests, collapse under her storm. He will call her broken because he has not broken himself. Descent teaches containment, not through control, but through comprehension. You cannot contain what you do not understand, and you cannot understand what you refuse to meet. So when she kneels before you, trembling, uncertain, aching for structure, she's not asking for your dominance. She's asking, have you gone down? Have you visited the place that I hide? Can you hold what I hold in silence? And if the answer is yes, if you have descended without fleeing, wept without shame, raged without destruction, and emerged not spotless, but solid, then she will know. Not by what you say, but by what you do not fear. This is the paradox of the way. To lead her downward, you must have already done so. To lift her higher, you must have built your home in the deep. The shallow man rises, the sovereign descends. So that there is a piece written about, well, I hope it was clear that the kingdom of man is actually inside you. To be a dominant, you actually have to go deep inside your self-concept, which is often warped, cracked, full of mirages, full of illusions that you've woven for yourself, so that you have this nice ego presentation to yourself. And that's what the ego does. It likes to see ourselves only in the very best light. But you cannot actually meet who you are and be authentic, right? Because you always hear, oh, you should be an authentic man. Be your authentic self. Well, that requires you looking into the dark, looking into the depths, start excavating who you really are. And it's not easy and it's not fun. But that's where your throne actually gets constructed. And if you're so comfortable there, this is why in that, in earlier in that piece, it says, the woman she can feel that because that's part of where she's at. Because women, their whole world is internal. It's a vast internal space, and it's full of chaos. There's darkness. There's a lot of self-criticism. There's judgment. There's shame. There's guilt. There's pain. There's fear. All kinds of crazy shit. Like, I am so thankful that I was not born a woman. Like, no shade to women, but I'm just saying I'm not envious of living in that reality. So knowing that, if you can go into that place and be calm from your own storms, your own fractured mirrors and all that shit, then meeting anything from her is like child's play. And this is one of the things that girls, they lament about. That, sorry, that the guy that she's with, like, can't handle her emotions. That when something comes up about, I don't know, whatever it is, that emotionally he just turns into like a deer staring into headlights. He doesn't know what to do. He's frozen. And it triggers the fight or flight or freeze. Fight, flight, or freeze. And oftentimes men will freeze. They have no clue what to do because it's unfamiliar territory. Or she's flipping out and the guy's like, she's crazy. She can't get a hold of herself. She's all over the place. Yeah, it seems foreign. It seems crazy because you don't know what it is. You're unfamiliar because you don't know it within yourself. And this is really where the path goes. This is really what happens. All my guys who've been working with me, they go through this stage. And they start facing the less than satisfactory parts of themselves, which are actually just beliefs. They're just beliefs that you've learned about who you are. And that's what causes the mirrors to warp or crack, causing a distorted image that becomes ugly to you, and you want to hide it. You want to hide away from that. A natural reaction. But we spend quite a lot of time sorting this out. And what's funny is that, on the front end, like, usually the guys will come to me and they say, all right, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to create this in my relationship. Like, I see what you've got going on, because I show them examples of my own relationships. They're like, oh, that's cool. I want to do that. I want to create this in my life. And then I say, okay, that's fine, but we got to dial it back. We got to look at you first. Okay, because you are the one who's responsible for creating the whole relationship. So we have to make sure that you're not sick, basically, because then everything you create will be tainted with that sickness. And so it takes time. But then once we start working through this, and I've got a couple of guys who are just kind of, they're clearing things away. They can see things better now. Right, that whole excavation process is getting less messy, and the things that they wanted to do at the beginning are 10 times easier. There's no longer the struggle of trying to fit something into a certain shape or worry that it won't fit. Things just naturally, or more naturally, fall into place, and there's less resistance from the self, there's less resistance from the girl, and it works out nicely. But it's not something that you can just make happen overnight. And I got this one guy, he tried to do that because he's like, all right, man, like, I paid for like a month and I want to just like utilize this as much as possible and crank on this knowledge. And the funny thing is that the harder he tried, the slower his relationship became. It's a weird thing. the harder he tried, the more resistance he received. It did not flow because he was trying too hard. And also, the he who was doing the trying was not congruent. He didn't know who he was. He just wanted to create the thing, and in his case, so that he could feel more secure in his own relationship. Oh, if I could, get her mind to be more submissive. I mean, she already is to a degree, but he's like, if I could have her more submissive, more enthusiastic, more obedient, create my own, a lot of rules and things like that for her to follow. And his whole motivation, of course, discovered through just a series of conversations, he realized that he was doing all that in an effort to protect his own emotions, not to actually do anything that would cause growth and depth within his woman, but just so that he could feel safe. And then he realized that he was putting the cart before the horse. And I kept telling him that. So you're putting the cart before the horse, man. You're trying to make this happen faster than your mind is able to process. Because that's just not how it works. You can't force it to go any faster than it actually can. Like a sponge has a set rate at which it can suck up water. You can't force feed a sponge. Even if you're to just push water in, the cells can only absorb water at a certain rate. And the same thing applies for your mind when it comes to development. All right, so let's look at another one here. Let's look at just want to take one that has high number of views on here. Let's look at repel. This one's not bad. Okay, so this one's called Repel, and this is about submissives, women. Oh, this is good. It actually kind of fits with what I was talking about of going slow in order to penetrate. So this one's called Repel. The slow blade penetrates the shield. Gurney Halleck, Dune, 1984. In Frank Herbert's Dune, the personal energy shields that warriors wore rendered fast attacks useless. Only a slow, deliberate strike, guided with control and patience, could breach the barrier. The shield, reacting to speed, would repel the quick and the forceful, but it had no answer for the subtle, the intentional. There's a lesson here, and not just for warriors. It applies to the domain of women and to the men who wish to enter them, not just physically, but psychologically. Most men move too fast. They try to dominate with brash gestures, with raised voices, with sudden sexual escalation. They try to cut through her hesitation with urgency. But her body and mind have shields, evolved over millennia, honed by trauma, culture, intuition. Fast moves trigger those shields. He tries to dominate too soon, pushes for sex too early. His touch lacks timing. His words lack depth. He believes desire is earned by pressure or intensity. He approaches her like a battering ram. She responds like a fortress. They rush toward what they crave and end up further from it, because they never saw that her resistance was never to sex. It was to being rushed. For Dune fans, this would be Raban. Okay, and if you've never read Dune, this is like a segue from the article. So in the story of Dune, there's House Harkonnen, and they're like the bad guys, right? And there's the Emperor or whatever his name is, and then he has two sons, Raban and Fade. And Raban was, he's like this big, strong guy, not super smart, and basically dealt with problems militaristically with like a sledgehammer. That was his mentality. Just go through hard and fast and destroy shit. Okay. Fade was of smaller stature. He was quick-minded, very smart and intelligent, crafty. And he did not move that way militaristically. He had more strategy. He would like to beat his opponents without them understanding how they were beaten. And then he would gloat over them, making them feel even more stupid on top of being beaten. Cruel. That's Fade. So guys, back to the article. They come in like Raban. And where was I here? Yeah, so they rush towards sex, or toward what they crave, and end up further from it, because they never saw that her resistance was never to sex, it was to being rushed. For Dune fans, this is Raban. Then there's the second man, more subtle, but still mistaken, the pickup artist. He studies tactics, lines, routines, psychological gimmicks. He has learned how to distract her guard dog, how to slip past her attention with guile and wit. He manufactures attraction through artificial displays of confidence and emotional misdirection. This would be Fade. And yes, sometimes these two archetypes work. The shield drops. But not because she felt safe, not because she truly chose to. She was tricked into it. And some part of her knows. That knowing lives in her nervous system. And no matter how erotic the moment feels, it leaves a residue. Her body may open, but her spirit does not yield. He got access, but not entry. Push too quickly for submission, and she will flinch. React too quickly for sex, and she will guard. Reach too quickly for sex, and she will guard. Demand without presence, and you will meet resistance. Not because she doesn't want to yield, but because you gave her no reason to feel safe enough to surrender. The wise man knows it is not the quick command, but the felt intention behind it. Not the act of dominance, but the slow, deliberate presence that invites her to lay her shields down herself. Every woman has a fortress. Every fortress has a hidden gate that only opens from within. This is why true domination moves like the slow blade. He doesn't hack. He doesn't slash. He enters with deliberate silence, with calibrated pressure, with pressure that is felt before a word is spoken. He listens not for agreement, but for softening. He doesn't conquer the body first. He waits for the breath to change, the gaze to linger, the posture to fold. When the slow man enters, he does so with gravity, with rootedness, with no need to chase or trick. He becomes the presence she lays her guard down for, willingly, fully, even hungrily. Because now it is not just her mind or her body that gives way, it is her being. And once you have that, you don't need a tactic. You don't need speed. You don't need force. You only need to be. To those who lead, consider this. The next time you feel the urge to push forward quickly, pause. Say less, touch less, do less, but be more. Let your gaze do what your hands are too eager for. Let her shields encounter something they were never built to repel: patience, power, and a mind unmoved by urgency. The slow blade penetrates the shield. So does the dominant man. And what he finds inside is not resistance, but devotion. So this is, I guess, counter to what I hear a lot in these spaces where guys are like, well, if I'm not fucking the first time we meet, then we're done. And I question, why would you be interested in bestowing upon her the esteemed honor of being filled with your dick when she has not yet proven it to you? And if you say she has, how could she possibly have done that in a matter of minutes or hours? How? Is your qualifications that short of a list? Is it really the value that small? I understand the value. I can create an entire lineage that passes through time through her with just one act, one sexual act. I can start creating a timeline of human beings through her. I can give her pleasure such that she fucking leaves her body. I can start affecting her entire sense of who she is and her consciousness. I'm not going to give that away for free. And if to the wrong person, it's actually dangerous. I mean, look at all these idiots who've impregnated shitty women. Women who should not be raising children. Women who are not yours. You just impregnated them and then just left them out into the world. That shows you don't give a flying fuck about your own value. Mine is so valuable that I don't let just anyone experience me. Like that'd be foolish. Absolutely foolish. But I get it. In culture, growing up as a young man, it's put on our shoulders that getting a lot of pussy is valuable. Which is to say, having the approval of women is valuable. Look at me. I have all this approval from women. I'm so much better than you are. But what that really is, what's really being said is, look at me at how well I play on a woman's chessboard. That's what it says. Look how gynocentric my worldview has become, where I value pussy so much that it makes me feel good about myself. That's really what's happening. You go far enough back in time, and women were objects of pleasure and lineage function. They were objects. They were there to help family, housework, farm work, and pleasure. That's it. And as the lenses changed over the years, men still wanted sex. They still liked that pleasure. They still had a desire to create families and lineage. They still needed help on the farms. But so they had to change with the lenses. And they went from one shade and they slowly transitioned to another shade. Kind of like those sunglasses, the transition lenses. and you're in a dark area and it's clear, and you step out into the sun and it slowly gets dark. Those are so fucking cool. They have motorcycle visors made out of the same shit, but like one visor is like $400, so fuck that. But anyways, so over time, because of their desires, they allowed, generation after generation, they allowed their lens color to shift. And it was so subtle, they didn't realize how poisonous it was until it was too late. And now you have an entire world of men. Sorry, I didn't mean to blaspheme. You have an entire world of males that are trapped in a paradigm of pussy worship. Pussy worship. And it's from afar. It's not even as though there's like an actual vagina in front of their faces that they are worshiping. It's a conceptual thing. It has become your God. And you hate it at the same time. Because, like God, you can't get close to it. You can get close to it in tension and in theory and concept and belief, but you can't really have that same closeness, say, like you have with your dog. You can hug your dog. But this, it's out there. It's this concept. It's something you can only see from afar through a screen. When you're flipping through X, or you're looking at your fucking OnlyFans accounts, or going on porn channels. And so the worship persists. That's when you go to church. When you go online, go to your favorite X-rated URL, that's you going to church. And it's also in the disdain, because there's a love-hate relationship, isn't there? There's bitterness. There's a bit of resentment. So even in the disdainful comments, even through the vicariously feeling it, say like when you watch the whatever podcast, and you see a guy like, whatever that dork's name is, really handing it to the girls on his panel, shutting them down. There's a bit of vicarious, like, get back of that resentment, because you can't express it directly yourself, but it's in there. So it scratches that little itch of wherever that came from, that disdain. That too is going to church. That is a form of worship as well. It just is in the form of negativity, bitterness, resentment. So the world, by and large, you have been conditioned to worship women. And not even just women as a whole. You just worship their whole. That's it. You don't worship women as a whole. You worship women's whole. Just a whole. And that is fucking crazy. You guys don't even have a religious book that you read from. Yet there are tons and tons and tons of beliefs and theories about women and their pussies. My goodness. All theory, no action. Well, it's not my fault. They're all hoes. Really? You fucked all the women and you found out they're all hoes? Well, no, but they said this on Fresh and Fit. Uh-huh. So you've got some guy's dick in your mouth while you're worshiping pussy that you hate. Okay. You're off to a great start. All right. This next one is called Own. This one is also for the dominance, for manhood. To possess power, one must first possess himself. Maxims of the Sovereign Path, chapter 1, verse 9. Before a man can lead, before he can be trusted, before he can command a woman's surrender, he must first master one thing: ownership. Ownership is not external. It is not about acquiring lands, wealth, or obedience. It is the act of inhabiting one's own consequences, fully, without retreat, without qualification. It is a quiet state of being in which the man no longer negotiates with reality or himself. He does not run from what he has done or said. He does not disguise what he wants. He does not flinch when the weight of his choices presses against him. This is rare because most men are trained socially, emotionally, psychologically to disown. Disown their intentions, disown their anger, disown their impact. They apologize for truths they haven't spoken. They've softened desires before they've even tested. They speak in disclaimers and retreat in the face of feminine emotion, hoping to remain seen as good, harmless, and safe. But the dominant is not safe. He's solid. And solidity begins where evasion ends. To own means to stop outsourcing responsibility to culture, to childhood, to her behavior. It means he no longer says, "She triggered me," but instead, "That response was mine. It belongs only to me." It means he no longer hides in sarcasm or opacity. He speaks what is his, directly. And when met with resistance, he does not explain himself away. He holds. To own is to become traceable, trackable, trusted. This is what calls to a woman's need for containment. And containment is not a skill. It is a structure, a framework of self-governance. A man who holds his actions, his words, his shadows, and his desires without collapsing or leaking. The man who owns is the man she watches most closely, because his presence signals, "I will not blame you for what lives in me." And that is rare. Ownership is what makes the dominant different from the manipulator. One holds the full burden of power. The other shifts it constantly onto others. So when a man commands a woman, if his command is hollow, if it is not rooted in ownership, she will feel it. Even if she complies, something in her remains guarded, because he is not in his words. He is borrowing power. But when he speaks with full possession, not just of his intent, but of its weight, she knows, and she softens. Not because she is weak, because he has given her something to relax into. He's given her a reason not to be strong. This is the unseen architecture of trust. Not charm, not logic, not even dominance as behavior, but as ownership as state. The man who owns himself becomes undeniable. He does not need to explain. He does not need to rush. And he certainly does not need to force. Because what he offers is not a script. It is reality. Unchanging, unflinching, whole. He does not wait to be approved. He does not collapse under being misunderstood. He does not fragment under consequence. He stands. He owns. And in that, he becomes the one she can kneel for, fully, consciously, willingly. Because no woman can surrender to a man who does not own the ground he stands on. It's very, very important, and you've heard it a lot before, I'm sure, to own your shit. Don't be the male that throws rocks and then hides his hands. And that throwing of rocks is not just something external that you've done. Certainly, if there's something in the world that you've said or that you've done and it backfires or it doesn't land well or it hurts someone, you absolutely have to own it immediately. But that rock throwing is also internal. Remember, everything you do is the same. It's all coming from the same source. Doesn't matter who it's directed toward. So you could be dealing with just something that's inside yourself and still throwing rocks and still hiding your hands from yourself. Like I said, this is not an easy path. You want to be a man, you have to go through a crucible. It's not achieved through getting a great job. It's not achieved through amassing wealth or traveling the world or developing an athletic body. None of that shit. This does not make you a man. Certainly there's benefits to it, but it won't make you a man. Nothing will make you a man except the path of manhood, which starts with owning your shit, owning the consequences of your thoughts and your words and your actions. And yes, certain thoughts do have consequences because they guide everything. They're connected to everything. You will never say something that isn't in line with a thought, right? Because the brain that came up with a thing to say is going to have a thinking pattern that's in alignment with the thing that you said. So it's all connected. The only difference is that sometimes it gets held back. You'll hold back on things you want to say. And that's when you're lacking congruence. But I say, shoot for congruence. Shoot for it. And you know what? You might offend someone. You might hurt somebody's feelings. You might piss somebody off. And you know what? That's okay. It's quite all right for someone to be offended. It's all right for someone to feel hurt. It's all right for someone to feel angry. That is more valuable than not showing up with congruence and you operate in a partial or false reality. And you can go through your entire life like this. You can go through an entire life of dishonesty and not living in congruence because you're scared. You're scared what you think is of other people and their emotional reactions. That's not true. What you're really scared of is yourself. Like I said, the throne is deep down below, in the dark, in a dark cave that you have to dig out yourself. Kind of reminds me of, I keep referencing this movie, Conan the Barbarian, the first one with Arnold Schwarzenegger. And, you know, his parents were killed. He's dragged off to become a slave. And, was that the first one or the second one? Conan the Barbarian or Conan the Destroyer? But there was this one scene where he was a grown man, and he was running. And he had like chains on his wrists. And he found this cave or this cavern, and he like dropped down into it. There's wolves after him or some shit. And he gets down there, and he, I don't know, maybe to save a torch or something like that, or I don't quite remember. And he's looking off into the darkness. He sees something, and he sees a man in the darkness of this cave, wearing battle armor and sitting on a throne. You know, everything's covered in cobwebs and all this shit, and it's obviously a skeleton sitting on this throne. But there was this great warrior king, and he was holding the sword that eventually becomes, you know, Conan's famous sword. And he sees this warrior king sitting there on a throne in this dark cave. Not in some light-filled, beaming hall with angels singing and golden horns blaring and twinkles of sunlight everywhere. No. This great warrior king was sitting by himself on a throne, probably quite comfortably, underground in the dark. You know, and then Conan took his sword and he knocked the cobwebs off, and then he cut the chains that were shackling him. And then he went off to become the hero that we all know and love. But, you know, while you're chasing this stuff, just know that you're chasing the wrong thing. It's fine to chase those things. It's not a bad idea to be healthy. It's not a bad idea to collect fun things like expensive cars and motorcycles. I've had quite a few of my own. But it will bring you no closer to manhood than, I don't know, buying a fake mustache. It does nothing. It does nothing for the you that is on this journey. Just know that. And the other thing, before I read the next article, is you have to accept the fact that you will never get to a feeling of, I have arrived. There will never be a point on the path of men where you can exhale and say, whew, my job is done. Boy, that was hard, but now I can kick my feet up and relax. That day is never coming, ever. Not on this path. That is not the way. It is never, ever going to happen. All you can do is when you take your final breath, you can say, today the journey is ending. And that's all you can say. But that does not mean you have arrived. You are always in a state of becoming, which is great because it's never fixed. It's never a truly solid, completely solid object. It's always in a state of becoming. And that's a fantastic thing. But some guys, they get weirded out by that. They get weirded out by the thought that that this is a never-ending journey of effort. It's like, yeah, And that's why the path of man is not cut out for all males. That's why we have more males in the world than we do men. Because the path is just it is what it is. And not every male is cut out for it. Only a small percentage of them are. And then because of the way of the world now with imagery and mimicry, it's easy enough to put on a front, to mimic some traits that make you passable. You know, kind of like when like a trans person is passable. That's one of the achievements that I hear of. Where the guy now is a passable woman. Yeah, and we all know that that's bullshit. And it's just the same amount of bullshit to be passable as a man. And you know you fucking do it. You know you fucking do it. Trying to be passable as a man. I understand, but all that does is just shows that you're a lazy coward. That's what that shows. I understand the impulse. I understand the fear. I understand the confusion. And I understand the need that you feel that you must do something. But know that you've done nothing at all. Just like someone who is a guy and they want to have surgery, take hormones, wear different clothes, wear makeup, hair extensions, boob job, this, that, this, that, this, that. At the end of the day, it does not change that core. The core remains the same. After all that effort, just to be passable. And guys will do the same. Males will do the same. They'll put in the same amount of efforts. They will fucking work out 6 days a week for 2-3 hours each time, sacrificing this and that just to get the body that they think a man should have. They will do this with certain education. They'll do this with their work. They'll do this with their social media. They'll do this with their bank account. And after all that effort, you're still fucking lost. If you have the courage to even acknowledge that you're lost. But a lot of times, you know what happens? A lot of times, you drink your own fucking Kool-Aid. And you start thinking that you've arrived when you've not even set out on your very first step. Which is to go down. Where none of that shit that you've worked on even fucking matters. None of it matters down there. Not one bit. And this is why when you are in the presence of a man, you can feel it. And your brain tries to come up with justifiable reasons why you feel it. You start looking for things. Oh shit, that's a really expensive watch on his wrist. It must be because he has a lot of money. Oh shit, he's got huge arms. It must be because he's really strong or he works out a lot. Oh shit, those two girls, sitting behind him. Oh, it's because he's got this great network of women. No. It's nothing you can see. The path of man and its achievements is nothing that anyone can actually see. It can only be felt. And this is what's been lost on young men today. There's no one there to actually teach them this, because you cannot teach a feeling through explanation or examples. You have to be around it when you're growing up. You have to be around it. You have to be exposed to the feeling that is actually difficult to describe. And that feeling generates a feeling in you. And you can't really express what that is, but you know what it is. It's something you know through knowing. I know that I know because I know. And it doesn't require any more explanation than that. But if you don't have that growing up, now you're just looking for symbols. You're looking for signs, patterns, statistics, something that you can cobble together a rickety photocopy of what you think a man is, held together with Gorilla Glue. Anyways, so we're going to move on to this other article. This one is called Trust. What's up, Viking? Good to see you here, man. So this one is called Trust. There is perhaps no softer fabric in the making of a submissive heart than trust. And yet, it is not soft. It is not lace. It is not velvet. It is bone. It is the scaffolding behind the posture. It is the silence before the command, the breath caught between please and yes, sir. And like all things which cannot be seen but are deeply felt, trust must be approached delicately. Not as one approaches a horse with sugar in the palm, but as one approaches the self in the long mirror, flinching sometimes, yet still standing. Submission is not a collapse, not a fall from one's footing. It is the folding in of strength, the choice to kneel, not from weakness, but from recognition. But how is one to kneel without knowing the floor? How to bow without knowing if the hand reaching toward your nape is filled with reverence or conquest? This is where trust becomes the cathedral in which all things kneel, not because they must, but because they can. In my own small observations, I've noticed the world does not make this easy. It tells the submissive that her longing is a sickness, or that her obedience is a lack of agency, but when in fact it is her sovereignty. To choose to surrender truly is the most demanding use of freedom. It requires a mind that does not wander at every harsh tone, that does not tremble at withheld affection. It requires, above all, that she trusts not only him, but herself. And the dominant, he must hold a silence of his own, not the silence of absence, nor of disinterest, but of steadiness. He must become the floor, the rhythm, the unmovable sky under which her chaos softens into stillness. And that is no small demand, for trust is not simply earned by good intentions. It is cultivated, deliberately, like the slow polish of a leather strap, again and again. Care, consistency, presence. To command without trust is not dominance. It is theft. It is theater. It is the sound of footsteps on a hollow stage. But to command with trust, that is music. That is where the edges of the self blur into the body of another. And suddenly, we are no longer performing power, but embodying it. It begins small, a rule, a ritual, a whisper that is a whisper that is obeyed, not because she must, but because something inside her wants to. And with each act of obedience, with each act of care, the thread pulls tighter, not choking, but weaving her into him into her, until you can no longer tell where the command ends and the desire begins. Let the world misinterpret. Let them call it play acting or pathology. What they do not understand is that trust in submission is not an accessory. It is the spine itself, the altar, the room of one's own kneeling, not alone, but in the presence of someone who has earned the right to hold you open. So obviously I was talking to the submissive in that article. And the thing is with trust is that it cannot be created overnight. And sort of like I was mentioning, the state of becoming, okay? Trust is never landed either. There's never this point where you say, oh, okay, now there's trust, okay? You can enter the neighborhood of trust, but the expanse of that neighborhood is vast. It goes on and on. So there's layers to trust. It doesn't stop when you just first enter the neighborhood and go, okay, here we are. We now have trust. You do, but that's not all there is. It gets further and further and further, deeper and deeper. And it's not something that you can force along. It kind of goes in connection with the first piece I was reading, or was it the first one? With the energy shields from Dune. The fast does not get you there. It must be slow and deliberate. She needs to feel your deliberate presence. I mean, think about it. Things that are not deliberate in life, we tend not to trust. If there's lack of consistency in something, we tend not to trust it, right? You turn on your car in the morning and it starts right up, boom, and the idle is just steady. You do it again like the next day and it's making a weird noise. It's not a steady hum. And you're like, that sounds really weird. I think I should not drive to work today. That's what happens when there's a lack of consistency. When there's lack of conviction. And this that sparks a, like, wait a second, and it draws the attention in. Or at least it makes the alerts go up. And this is the same thing that happens with women, especially when you're pushing too fast for sex. It's like all of these things are deeply connected. All that stuff that I've been reading this evening, it's all deeply connected. The armor, the moving fast versus moving slow, the trust, the throne at the bottom of the cave. All of these things are interconnected. And none of it has anything to do with your presence in the world. Oh, but that guy with all the stuff, he gets so much attention online. Yeah, I was explaining this earlier today. Actually, hold on just 1 second. Just got to pause for 1 moment. Pardon me. All right. Sorry about that. But yeah, all this shit is connected, man. You're like, oh fuck. Well, I just want to get laid, bro. I just want to stick my peen in something wet and warm, bro. Okay, whatever. You don't like yourself. Like, honestly, like if you really liked yourself, you would not be giving it away to just any woman who's willing to take it. Same with your time, your attention. It's funny. You'll guard your time, attention, and your money, but you'll give your dick away for free. Like, that just shows your level of vibration of where you're at, of what you find important. The one thing that has the potential to produce a tremendous impact on a woman, you give it away like it's fucking free popcorn at the movie theater. Explain that. The only thing I could come up with is that you just don't fucking like yourself. That's the only explanation that makes any kind of sense, is you just don't like yourself, which is wild, you know. And then there's the whole conundrum of the guys who are just invisible to women, and they're like, well, you're like, yeah, I'm with you, bro. And it's like, well, there's a difference between being desired and saying, no, I have value, and being invisible and saying, no, I have value. So I get that there's a bit of a contrasting problem there, right? Because there are guys who are invisible. And to that, I would say that's life. That's fucking life. Wipe your nose, pull up your pants, and get on with living. That's the way it's been since we crawled out of caves. Some guys get women, and many do not. That's the way of the jungle. That's how it goes. Look at any other animal species on the planet. Like, do you think like all the apes are procreating? No, they're not. All the tigers, all the fucking seagulls, all the squirrels. No, they're not all creating progeny. They're not. And that's life. The difference is that humans have an ego that make them think that they're more special than they actually are. And so they go on and get all fucking sad and angry, and then they go onto YouTube and complain that it's women's fault. But I would say take the advice from the squirrel. The squirrel that does not mate. He goes through his life. He gathers the nuts before the winter. He fucking hibernates, eats, plays, does squirrel life. And then he dies. And that's just what life is. And then there's some squirrels, they, create squirrel babies. But in either case, neither of them are like complaining about it because they don't have an ego. Guys, we have this ego and like, oh my gosh, I'm so fucking special. You're not. No one's fucking special. You're just another warm-blooded organism on this planet. And with enough time, we'll all be forgotten. Every single one of us. People's fields. What would you say then if a woman tries or wants to have sex with you and you deny her and she asks why? Because she hasn't earned it yet. It's that simple. I mean, that's why I would deny her. But also time scale is on there. If it was a short time scale, that would be my answer. If it's a longer time scale and we have interaction, there's something actually building, and she's stepping along my program and she's been consistent and all this stuff, and she wants to have sex, I would still say she hasn't earned it. But now there's more specific reasons why. Because she hasn't earned like a certain level of achievement. She hasn't gotten to a certain level. She still needs to learn certain things. I want more to see on the path of excellence in her personal development before giving her dick. Like, that's, you just don't give it away just because she's horny, especially in the pussy. Like, yeah, maybe like I'd let her give me a blowjob or fuck her in the ass, but pussy, that gives her way too much pleasure. What up, Viking? I say all the time, most guys lack self-respect because they don't understand what a victim mindset is versus a victor mindset. Sure. Yeah, how you think about yourself is a massive determining factor for so many things moving forward. I would say pretty much everything moving forward in life. How you think of yourself is paramount. And if you rely on something outside of yourself to tell you how to think about yourself, then it's kind of like the whole like Dumbo's elephant or Dumbo's feather thing. And you have this crutch that you think you need in order to feel good about who you are. You know, it's a very weird thing that we grew up learning to do. And I think pretty much all humans do this, provided you don't have some sort of like mental disorder or whatever. But on the average, it's like we grow up and we go through these filters where we learn that other people's opinions about us have some sort of relevance or value, when in actuality they don't. And we learn these little tools. I mean, but they're made out of plastic. They're not real tools. So like, you ever see like a tool set you buy for like a 2-year-old, and there's like the little hammer and the screwdriver and things like that, but they're like light and hollow plastic. They look like the tool, but it's not really a tool. I mean, actually the screws work, and there's like bolts and nuts and things like that, but they're not real tools. And so it makes us feel like these are tools, but they're not really tools for the self. Not at all. Not real. What do you got here? People's again, what if you already was having sex? I definitely want to start commanding that space. You mean like in the act of sex? In the act of sex, you can stop whatever you want. You say, that's enough for now. And tell her to put her clothes back on. I'm telling you, she's going to hate that, but she's going to love it at the same time. That's enough for now. Get up, go pour yourself a glass of wine or juice or whatever. Go make some tea. What? Yeah, it's enough for now. Listen, honey, I gave you a good 4 minutes. Consider yourself lucky. But maybe you're thinking already having sex like in a larger time scale sense. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But the thing is that you have to have reason. So that's the problem. Remember, in the beginning of the show, I was talking about a client of mine who was putting the cart before the horse. He too wanted to have structure, but the who that was trying to put the structure together was fragmented and weak. He was undefined. He didn't understand himself. He was still operating off of impulses that came from his shadow when he didn't know what his shadow was. Just a lot of stuff. And then he's trying to create something, create structure and rules, and try to some have some sort of like power dynamic BDSM-ish thing going on. And it was hollow. It was, it was like when you like go into department store and like the kitchen, you go to like IKEA and they have the kitchen all set up and there's this nice wicker bowl there with this fruit in there and it looks so fucking real. And you go up and grab it and it's a hollow piece of plastic, but my God, it looks like a real apple. But it's totally fake. It's a completely fake apple. And so, yes, you could jump out and say, hey, pleasure is being put under control now. I've set levers in, and sex is not going to happen until these levers are pulled. She's going to be like, what? And mostly because the only thing that's there is the set of actions. There's no intention behind it. There's no reason behind it. Except something very shallow in the sense that I want to do this because it sounds cool. I want to do this because it seems fun. I want to do this because I like the feeling of control. There's nothing deeper than that because one doesn't know oneself first, right? We have to know who the operator is before we set him in front of a machine that he designs to guide his relationship. Well, don't sweat it. Don't sweat it, peoples, because I didn't really get in too much into depth. I just mentioned a client of mine who was doing this sort of thing and how it doesn't really produce the effect that you're actually looking for. So what happens, the real way, it's not the creating the function. Okay, check this out. Creating the structure and the function and all this stuff, like control and whatever, it can produce certain effects in the woman's behavior. But it's only going to be her doing. It's not going to be an act of being. So submission can be done by just about any girl who's willing to. It doesn't take much to get on your knees and say, yes, sir. Like practically any girl can do that if they want to. That's the doing. It is a massive difference between doing submission and being submission in the state of submission, which requires a whole lot of other shit, which involves trust, like what I was just reading. It involves a whole host of different things that have her going deep into her cave inside. Because she's got her roadblocks. Remember I said like women are like a fortress in one of the articles that I was reading. Like that fortress was erected for reasons. For protection. Sometimes even from herself. And other things is that she's learned. Bruises and injuries she sustained. Beliefs that she's acquired. And it's beyond those walls where real submission lies, where it's not submission of action, it's submission of a state of being. And it's a process getting there. It's not this light switch that goes on and say, oh, it's because I'm so horny and I really like how you are and how you look or what I could get out of you or what kind of experience we can have together. Then now I'm going to be submissive. No, it doesn't work that way. It's something that's developed over months or even years of consistent practice. And like I said, and that's the right word, it is a practice in the same sense that like Buddhism is a practice. Medicine is a practice. It's an ongoing thing of development, of learning, of stripping away and adding on. For the submissive typically it's stripping away. For the dominant, it's stripping away and adding on. The things the submissive adds on are just the things you teach her. But it's not something that can just be done. It's a world of immersion. And in that immersion, some things have to be allowed to die off. And it's not fun. And you're like, man, I just want to like slap a bitch and like, you know, put her in a vinyl hood. You can do all that, you know, but don't get fooled in your ego into thinking that that's real dominance and submission. It's not. It isn't. Now, I'm not trying to discourage you from having fun. Have all the kind of kinky fun you want, okay? But that's not it. These are states of being. Like I was in this group chat. Well, I'm still in this group chat. And there's this one guy, and he's like, yeah, I met this new girl, and I'm thinking about doming her this weekend. Like he couldn't feel, but if he could feel the massive eye roll that I was doing through the phone, I would hope that he would be embarrassed. I'm doing, maybe I'll dom her this weekend. It's not a doing. Domination isn't a thing of doing. It's a thing of being. And it could show up as an expression that looks like this or that. But there is no look. There is no set standard of what is done. All of my guys are different. Every single one of them. Their cores are relatively similar. But how that's expressed is completely individual. So just know the doing won't get you there. Like if I fake it until I make it, you can't do it that way. It takes time. That's why the RP always tells guys that are at least 6 months to a year. Most guys won't take the correct time. Yeah, well, I leave pill cults alone. I'm not really into that cultist shit, but you don't need a cult to tell you to take your time with shit. Yeah, 6 months to a year at the least. And here's the thing, Viking, and for anybody else, vetting never, ever fucking stops. Every single day, she's on probation. Every day, forever. You're like, man, what? That's kind of harsh. Really? Like, I can't relax and just... No, you can't. You can't. You want to wear the crown of man? Well, that means that you're going to have to be responsible for shit all the time, which means watching over those that are under you. That you think like you just create a couple of kids and you can kick your feet up, go, I'm a dad now. Cool. All right, I'm going to go take a nap. The fuck you are. You're not doing shit with your own life for a long time because you have to be the observer. You have to be the watchman. You have to be the scheduler. You have to be the doer, the protector, the provider. You have to be the creator, the supporter. You have to wear so many hats. That's what happens when someone's under you. As you assume more responsibility, not less. And I think a lot of guys, they want the girl and they want less responsibility. It doesn't work that way. You want to lead? Well, you're going to have to fucking put your big boy pants on. Take off the damn skirt. Take off the leggings. Take off the fucking ballet slippers. And put on some pants. Tuck your fucking shirt in. And be ready to work. That's what being a leader is. Well, more than that, but that's part of it. That's the basic mindset. Because I'm not sleeping on me. I am not sleeping on me. So therefore, anybody who's under me, I'm not sleeping on them either. I watch myself like a hawk, like double time. So I'm watching her like a hawk, at least single time. At the very least. Because if I want my program to run smoothly, I have to be on top of myself. I can't let things get frayed edges. I can't let things fall by the wayside. I can't let things fall apart. Okay, that's the nature of the world, is entropy. That's the nature of life. If you take an apple and just set it out on the table and do nothing, entropy will take over. It will decay. And this is the case for everything in the world, including habits, including your beliefs. Like, you have to keep the fire stoked constantly. And if you don't have what it takes for that, that's okay. But don't demand the things that require that in order to function. Don't demand the girl. Don't demand her submission. Don't even fucking desire her submission. Don't even think about it. Because you're not interested in doing what's necessary in order to inspire her submission to come out and just flow with you. And then you have to monitor that. Why? Because submission does not hold its own form. It's like water. And that's the beautiful thing about it. But it also comes with the fact that, well, water doesn't hold its own shape. It needs a container. It needs a containment to hold its shape, and it will take that shape. Like what Bruce Lee was talking about when he was talking about fighting. He said, be like water. Pour it in the teapot, it becomes the teapot. Pour it into a cup, it becomes the cup. You pour it into the rag, it becomes the rag. And this is how women are in their natural, beautiful, submissive, vulnerable state. It can be easily damaged because it's so soft. That has to be managed. And it can be easily contained, provided the container is solid. If it's made out of fucking paper mache, and then written with a marker says, tungsten steel on the side, it's not actually tungsten. Which, by the way, if you don't know about tungsten, it's extremely hard metal, extremely hard. It's not tungsten. Even if you write it in perfect penmanship, it's still paper mache. Okay? And you put a woman's vulnerability, her softness, her submission in there, it's actually going to erode your container. It's going to make you fall apart because you can't handle it. So if you can't handle it, own it. Own that truth. That's what the very first article that I read was about. It was about owning the truth of yourself, of where you are right now, with no fucking smoke being blown up your own ass. Like, this is what so many guys are doing today. It's like they've got this long siphon tube going from their mouth all the way around to their ass. And they're blowing smoke into their own ass. This is what most young men are like today. I don't know about most, but there's quite a few. 20s, early 30s. They're just blowing up smoke in their own ass. And every puff takes you further and further off course from the way. The way is with brutal honesty with the self. Unfiltered reality with the self. non-emotional judgment, non-defensive criticism, pure, honest audits. That's where the path begins. That's when you start walking for the first time in your life, is when you're that honest with who you are without getting into the poor me and bashing myself and centering your fucking suffering. Okay, because that too is narcissism, is bashing yourself. All right? One side of the narcissistic coin is the big chest, look at me, I'm so fucking important. Okay? The other side of the coin is sort of like, look at me, I'm so fucking low. They're both means of drawing attention and centering your ego. Just like, I mean, I know I'm not very much into red pill, like you mentioned it, but way back in the day, before the term even existed, there was this small group on Reddit about fixing your fucked up marriage. And I think this is the first time I ever saw the acronym STFU. Constantly, they were just saying, shut the fuck up. And I think this is probably one of the greatest things, one of the greatest first skills that you can master as a man is shut the fuck up. Get to work. Shut up. And they also use this Latin. Was it Latin? I think it was Latin. This phrase, it says acta non verba, right? Basically, shut up, take action. But that's the beginnings. It's not telling people what you're going to do, not telling people what you're about. You got to be about it. Don't talk about it. I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm like that. No, this is my theory on this. Who gives a fuck? Nobody gives a flying rat's ass about you and your fragile, dainty, self-inflated ego. Nobody gives a fuck about you. And that's actually a good thing. Because once you realize that, it gives you tremendous freedom. That should actually feel like a weight being lifted off of your shoulders when you realize that no one gives a fuck about you. No one cares about your ideas or what you think about women or what you think about the state of man. Nobody cares. Like, even if you have a whole YouTube channel dedicated to it with lots of followers, no one actually cares. And this is the truth of the matter. So I'm going to read another one here. You know what? We were talking about being overdoing. So let's read this one, but it's from the submissive angle. Be overdue. Submission isn't about kneeling. It's about surrender. Not just of the body, but of the ego, the need to control, the illusion of independence. There's a world of difference between a woman who plays the part of a submissive and a woman who is soulfully submitted. One follows instructions, the other offers herself. One acts, the other aches. True submission isn't measured in how loud you moan, how many rules you follow, or how obedient you seem on the surface. It is in the silence between words, the willingness to let go, the sacred, vulnerable place where your pride dissolves and devotion takes its place. Some will never understand this. They'll call it weakness. They'll say you've lost yourself, but you haven't. Quite the contrary, you've been found, claimed, in the only way that ever mattered. Because for some of you, submission isn't a kink. It's a calling. It's not even a part of BDSM. It just is. So know that surrendering, or surrendership, if you want to call it that, this too is a state of being for her. The odd part, and this is just very interesting, the differences that I've noticed between men and women, is that she cannot take herself there. Like the male dominant can take himself to where he needs to be. He can start off on his trek, on his hero's journey. But she cannot. She can take herself only so far, because here's the thing. One cannot will themselves into losing control, because there's a part of your will that must be present in order to take away control, to remove that part of the minds, that the one that's trying to hold on or make decisions. There's something pulling on that. So in order for a woman to truly embrace surrendering, it can only come up to a certain point, and then that point to go beyond requires the steady hands of another. This is why submission requires dominance. Now, dominance also requires submission up to a certain degree, right? So if, let's say, I don't have any submissives, I'm still a dominant, okay? But my expression goes up to a certain point. There's some things that I just cannot do that require the presence of another in order to fully express certain pathways. There's just certain things require another person. And so my expression is dependent upon a submissive to be present. And for her to let go, only, I would say, a very, very small percentage of women have the mental and spiritual wherewithal to dissolve the ego. And I think without another, it's impossible to do that entirely alone. I really don't think it's possible. Like, you definitely need someone there to kind of hold your psyche, hold your spirit. I could be wrong. This is just my intuition speaking. But yeah, there's a big difference between being and doing on both ends. And if you're just getting into this lifestyle, if you're just getting into exploring BDSM, that's great. It's one of the most wonderful things that you'll be able to experience if you do it right, because you'll learn a lot about yourself. You'll learn a heck of a lot about yourself. But sorry, I was looking to open up one more article. But yeah, you'll learn a lot about yourself as a dominant, and it brings about like especially if you allow your ego to be challenged, it brings about a greater sense of presence in your own life, to a degree that I'm at a loss of words to really describe at this time. So I apologize for that. But it is what it is. A lot of my students when they start kind of coming into this, when this greater understanding, this deeper understanding, they're like, is this like a spiritual thing? And I don't really know what to say because I'm not exactly a spiritual person, but I guess I can understand what they're talking about. But let's move on to this last one here. It's called The Atom and the Animal, a dominance field guide to the feminine. Those who only see surfaces are doomed to chase masks. The wise man ceases his chase and instead excavates essence. Maxims of the Sovereign Path. There is a seductive illusion in the study of women, that their variation implies mystery, that complexity begets unknowability. But this, like many illusions, persists only at a distance. The untrained man, whether driven by desire, fear, or fascination, approaches women as a zoologist might approach a new biome. He notes the differences, cultural overlays, emotional cadence, erotic preferences, patterns of speech. He begins classifying, assigning traits, debating characteristics. One might even become renowned for his ability to name the behaviors and map them like the plumage of birds in mating season. These men build taxonomies of the feminine, dissecting the types of women: the coquette, the nurturer, the temptress, the tradwife, the rebel. But they are operating fundamentally at the level of the species characteristics. This is a pursuit not of fundamental truth, but of behaviorism, of the endlessly shifting surface. It is the level of pattern recognition without penetration. It is, as I often say, exhausting. And it is here that most men remain. To engage with women at this level is to remain as a mammologist of the feminine, trained in outward behaviors, fluent in distinctions, but forever bound to the surface. A woman becomes a subject of study, a spectacle to observe, a variable in an equation that never solves. And no matter how many species of women he encounters, beds, or debates, he will remain exiled from her core. But the man who ceases his obsession, with behavior and classification, the man who descends into the layers beneath the woman's display, he finds something else entirely: a sameness, a unity of function, a simplicity that's not simplistic, but elemental. He ceases to be a mammologist, and he becomes an atomic physicist of the feminine. At the level of atoms, all mammals are the same. Stripped of fur, diet, and display, there is only atomic binding energy. Likewise, a woman, when her observed performative layers in taxonomy fall away, reveals a core nature that does not vary from one to the next. Yes, her stories differ, her traumas are hers, her joys may be unique in their setting, but her drives, her needs, not her desires, but her needs, are ancient and shared. And once you learn to see women at this level, a strange serenity sets in. You're no longer grasping, you're no longer confused. There's no debate about what type she is. You see the animating force beneath the flesh, beneath what psychology calls self-concept. Her core is not a mystery. It is a transmission, but it requires the correct receiver. And this is where the burden shifts. Because to interact with a woman at her core, you must have accessed your own. You must descend past your ego, past your masks, past the compensations you've built to survive boyhood. You must burn through the social insulation modernity has wrapped around the masculine soul. You must strip yourself to principle. Then, and only then, will her core respond. To touch the core of a woman is to touch something both precious and dangerous. It is delicate not because it is weak, but because it is primal. It is not meant to be casually approached. Her softness is not submission. It is a gate. Her resistance is not hostility. It is a test of your clarity. And if you are uncentered, if you operate from lust, pride, compensation, or control, she will know. Her core will close to you. She will offer only the behaviors, only the masks. And you, like all the rest, will be cast back into the realm of the mammologist, arguing about types, pursuing novelty, baffled by inconsistency. Worse, some men, frustrated with the feminine's refusal to open at the core, retreat into transaction. They speak of women as commodities. Treat them like hookers, they say. And they are not entirely wrong. If you engage her at the level of transaction, that is what she becomes. But it's unfair to resent shallow responses when you're not reaching for anything deeper yourself. A man who engages only her surface will never meet the woman. He will never meet her defense. He will meet only her defense mechanisms, her persona, her conditioned reactions. But the woman, the real woman, she's waiting, buried deep within, like a signal only heard by those who have tuned the static out of their own minds. If you're still chasing those types about categories or reacting to female behavior with confusion or complaint, you're not seeing her. You're cataloging her. Instead, observe her with the same clarity that an atomic physicist observes the world, detached from spectacle, focused on distilled function, hungry for essence. Then you will know women, not as 1,000 variations, but as a singular force. And you will stop chasing the spectacle of behavior and begin mastering the gravity of essence. That, I think, is one of my more favorite pieces that I've written. Mike, yes, sorry, I was reading. You can absolutely ask questions. Captain, yes, it's all work. Hit the nail on the head. Yep. Yeah, man. I'm finding out women have general and initial submission, and I'm finding out that it's either be strengthened or it can fade away. Yeah, right, because it's only surface stuff. It's just play. I mean, especially today, like with the exposure with porn and OnlyFans and shit. There's a movie. What was it called? I did a review on it. Baby Girl. Right? There's Baby Girl is it's a mainstream, So people can copy that shit all day long, but it's not real, It becomes real when she's faced with her fears. And I don't mean being scared in the bedroom because you're having knife play or some shit like that. I'm saying her fears that she holds on to that no one really gets to see. And like, fuck, I don't want to see that shit. I don't give a fuck about what she's afraid of. Well, then don't complain about ever seeing a woman. And only dealing with her surface reactions and being a mammologist who only deals with surface level behaviors and categorization and all that bullshit. don't complain with the reality that you only interact with. You get what you pay for in life. Well, my guess is that Mick had to move on. He guess I didn't answer it in time. But anyways, yeah, there's no quick fix, guys. I'm sorry to say. You're going to have to invest. If anything, your time. You'll have to invest your time. And that's just the way it goes. That's the way it goes, brothers. You have to invest. And it's really like not to get anything out of it. I mean, you don't want to waste your time. It's a weird conundrum because you don't want to waste your time, but you're not really fixed on an outcome. It's a strange space. Like the path of man is just weird. I mean, I wouldn't pass it up for anything. I wouldn't pass it up for anything in the world. But yeah, you have to let go of expectations, I guess. You have to let things unfold, but also do the folding. It's weird. Yeah. But yeah, that general initial submission, it's super common, and you really got to watch out for it, especially if they're super excited. It's a phenomenon that's pretty common. It's known as sub frenzy, and they can get themselves into a lot of trouble without knowing it, especially if they get with a person who thinks they're a dom, but has really no idea what the fuck he's doing, and ends up injuring her, either physically or sexually, emotionally, psychologically, and perhaps doesn't even know how he did it or why. And so, actually, if you see a girl who is very enthusiastic about submission, don't jump at it and actually learn to pace it. Okay? So it's going to come on hard and fast. Through your communication, you need to basically take like a dimmer switch, a dial, and plug it right into her. And now you start controlling that dial. You start playing with it to determine how fast, how slow, and how intense things move. And if you do it the right way, she will not lose her intensity, but it will become channeled. It'll become more focused. Okay? Kind of like an airbox, like on a vehicle, right? I don't know if you guys know about running motors and shit, but there's all vehicles have an air intake. Okay, so you've got the ram air, pulls it into a tube and it goes into a box, and then from that box is connected the fuel injectors or the carburetors, and that air gets pulled to the carburetor, mixes with the jet of fuel. And then that gets shot into the cylinders, which then gets squeezed and combusted, shooting the pistons down, and then the exhaust gases go out. So, why do you need the airbox? Because air in its natural state out here, the atoms are very turbulent. It's just, there's completely random bouncing around and all this stuff. And it's even worse when you're traveling at speed. Because when you're actually in a substance right now. I mean, I know we take it for granted. We don't really think about it, but we're in a substance called air. And just the molecules are so far apart that we don't really feel it until you're going fast, right? And then you can feel this stuff that we're in. And so that the turbulence of the air gets way more intense the faster you go. And if you bring turbulent air into fuel injectors or carburetors, the air is going fucking crazy and it doesn't combust very well. Okay. It doesn't get squeezed together very well when mixed with fuel. So you want air that is calm, that's less turbulent. And so that's why you have the air intake tube that goes into the air box, passes through the air filter, and then you've got this air box, and it's cut off, it's separated from the environment, so that turbulent air has a chance to settle down. And from there, that settled air, this happens within like milliseconds, but that settled air gets then pulled into the fuel injectors or the carburetors, and you get a much smoother combustion because of that. And it's like that. Now, because of my senile brain, I completely forgot why I brought up that airbox, why I brought up the airbox analogy. But that's how airboxes work and the reason why you have them. But whatever. So I think that's it for this evening's show. Just wanted to read some of the stuff that I'm working on. If you want to read any more of that stuff, or if you want to have some a peek into the mind of a submissive and what they're thinking. I think I brought that up because of the sub frenzy and using the dimmer and controlling her sub frenzy with channeling and pace control. Yes, so it's like the airbox. Got it. I'm smart. So, but yeah, thank you for your comment, peoples. So on the Substack, if you're interested in getting a glimpse of, the processes, the inner workings, the thoughts of a submissive who's going through a journey, I have my submissives always working journals, diaries really. And so they work on them. Some work on them, every day if they can, a couple times a week or once a week. Sometimes there's breaks because, life, but whatever. And the journal or the diary is in a shared Google Doc. And so I've taken it upon myself to copy a number of these journal entries of one of my submissives. And I put them up on Substack for you guys to enjoy. And the cool part about it is that you get to see behind the curtain. You get to see behind the curtain of a submissive of what they're feeling, what they're thinking. Well, at least this one. Some of them are quite different, but what she's describing is fairly common among submissives. And it's very well written. Very well written. I like reading her stuff. And that's why I chose hers instead of the others, because she writes so well. So if you want to take a look into the mind of a submissive as she's going through the paces of becoming an owned submissive and eventually a owned slave, then take a look. Take a look. There's a number of entries in there right now, and they're on my Substack. So if you want to get at the Substack, just go through the description of this or any of the recent videos, and there should be a link right in there for Substack. Let me just make sure. Yep, it's in there. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me here on the live. And I appreciate those of you that will be catching this on the replay. And people's also, if you want to talk about this stuff more, I feel like you've got a good number of questions. My consultations are free, so just grab the Calendly link that's in the description of this or any video and just grab a time that works for you. But yes, you are correct. It sounds like you not have to bring her to mental space, but just you do. that's one of the effects of being around you should do. If it doesn't, then likely there's something going on with you, or there's something extremely serious beyond your influence that's going on with her. And those things tend to be not super common, though most inexperienced males will have you believe that that's not the case, but it actually is. Most women are not that fucked up. I mean, they're fucked up, but not that fucked up. But a lot of inexperienced males will have you believe that they are all just crazy out of their fucking mind. And it's just not the case. But no, you don't have to bring her to a mental space where she's at peace. You just do. It's a result. It's a result of being in your presence. And you can see that in some of the journal entries that one of my subs, that my sub has put in there, where she was feeling chaotic. She was, her mind was all over the place, very scattered, erratic, overthinking, a lot of anxiety, worrying. And on top of that, she masturbated a lot. Like, she'd play with her pussy like, 3 times a day at least. And it was for a number of different reasons. And then after, I asked her about this recently. And her training's been going on for, I think, 3 months now. Yeah, I think it's 3 months. And she said now she no longer has the scattered mind. Her emotions are very much more at peace. The issue that she has, and it's just one singular issue, it's so clear. Now, it's still kept at a distance because it's hard to deal with issues, but it's very clear and in front of her. But she's not afraid of facing it. And it has to do with her self-worth. And her lust is interesting. Her lust, if it's something connected to me, has increased like 100-fold. But she no longer has this insatiable desire to play with herself unless I tell her to. And then it like flicks on this switch, and all of that old like desire to play becomes alive again. It's like waking up a tardigrade that you've put under a deep freeze or something, and then it like floods come back to life, right, in a big flood. So it's more intense, less spread out, less scattered, and a lot more focused. That's what's happened to her arousal. And it's and it's all linked to me. She's not interested in watching porn anymore. I mean, I told her that she shouldn't watch it, because it's not really that great for girls to watch either. Because girls largely carry around a lot of insecurities about their image, and watching models, naked models, who have done work to themselves, or they've just been blessed with good genetics, really does a number on their own psychology. And then at the same time, they're masturbating to these women who are getting fucked. And so it just sets up a whole weird thing. Like, kind of like, the guy who's not getting laid, and he's basically turning himself into a cuck. Okay? Because, a cuck is somebody who gets off on the idea that another man is fucking your woman, or fucking the woman that you would like to fuck. And that is being turned into an erotic moment. So what do you think is going to happen What do you think is going to happen to your psyche over time if you repeatedly watch another man fuck the woman that you want to fuck while giving your brain this constant reward for consuming this sort of visual information? Do you see how messed up that can be? So in the same way, with girls watching the same sort of thing, but they're looking at it and judging themselves. Oh, look at how pretty that girl is. Look at how perfect her tits are. Look at how perfect her little pussy is. There's not an ounce of cellulite on her, right? All the while, she's sitting there fucking diddling her little fucking bean and getting off. So now there's this linkage that's starting to be created every single time, and it gets strengthened, feeling bad, the judgment, and then giving a reward for that feeling bad and the judgment. So now that's being ground into the mind by having that strong reward system. So it's all screwed up. Like porn is like really bad for your psyche. It's not good at all. If anything, just watch like hentai, anime shit, right? Because it's all just cartoons. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't like really compare that. Maybe I can't. I mean, because it's just drawings to me, you know. Or read the manga. I think that'd be just better. You should be reading more, anyways. But yeah, she will be at peace, People's Field. But yeah, all right. So this time I'm telling the truth. I'm cutting this to a close. It's almost midnight. You guys have yourself a fantastic weekend. Do something fun or relax. Clean something so you feel good about your living space. Enjoy yourself. Put some sun on your face. And remember, submissive women are not born. They're created. All right, guys. Until next time, take it easy.